On this week's episode of The Smoke Break, we talk with comedian and booker Katy Ipock about dealing with bullying and harassment in positions of power. We also talk about setting boundaries as a people pleaser. Check out The Smoke Break every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio. Welcome to The Smoke Break. We are here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio. I am your host, your old pal Zane, here with Amanda Lynn Deal.
Hi, friends.
And Katy Ipock.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm so glad to have you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm super stoked to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell me just real quick about your guys' relationship so that way we know who we're talking to.
Yes. So I met Katy through Bend Comedy. She's been a producer and booker there for a while. Has always been someone that's kind of like given me opportunities and helped book me and kind of uplift me in that scene and just made me feel like I was a professional when I imposter syndrome didn't feel like I was.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I have family in Bend, so I always try and like do some comedy while I'm there anyways, but I like performing there too. So yeah, we just kind of got closer because of that, but also I think we both just kind of saw the hardworking badass bitch in each other and have also kind of uplifted each other in in that way as well.
Awesome,
hardworking recognizes hard work.
Yeah, it's like, I see you, boo.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. So you are a booker, correct? I almost said the dreaded P word.
Yeah.
What's the difference, just for people who aren't really sure?
So it's actually a very recent transition for me. So as of last month, I owned a company called Apocalyptic Productions.
Gotcha.
And we produced comedy shows.
Which is a clever name, by the way.
Dude,
yeah.
I named my company like a comic and not like a business person.
Yeah.
Apocalyptic isn't even spelled the way people would expect it to be spelled. And my original
good luck Googling it.
Yeah. And like the original domain was apocalypticproductions.com, which is a lot to type. And so yeah, and I produced shows all over Bend in a sense that I would take comedy, take it to a place, book it, and put it together.
Gotcha.
And as of the start of November, I am now specifically booking shows at Craft Kitchen and Brewery as their event manager. We call it facilitator of fun.
Facilitator of fun.
Yeah.
Wow. I like it.
And so I'm not really a producer anymore because Craft as a business is producing it.
Yeah,
now I'm basically one of the employees.
You're picking the people.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I imagine with running just about anything that there are going to be hurdles, and most of those hurdles are other people. They tend to be tricky. So as far as your production and your booking experience, like what are some things that you've run into just with people? People.
So many. So the whole reason why I started my production company was because I was blacklisted from the only 2 stages in Bend. Okay. And Bend is not really big. Bend doesn't have a lot of stages.
No, it's not.
And so I was stuck with a choice of either never doing stand-up again or just creating my own open mic. And at that time was right about the time that I got picked up to be the DJ at a country bar. Which is one of the most cringiest sentences I ever said.
If you guys are watching the video, she cringed hard.
And so I was able to get that bar to also let me run an open mic. And so the whole point was so I could still do stand-up. And
this was the country bar.
Yeah. The country bar let me do stand-up. They only let me do stand-up let me do open mics there. It was maybe
twice.
It was a little under a year. We had a black man who started doing stand-up. And I'm
so excited.
He would say the N-word and a lot. And it made the owner of a country bar incredibly nervous. And so they asked me to tell him to not say it anymore. And I am not going to tell someone of color that they can't use a slur.
Listen, we took everything from you. Now we need this word back too.
Yeah, like I wasn't going to do it. And so I literally looked at the owner and I said, well, this is going to be our last open mic. And then I called Craft Kitchen and Brewery when at the time we were just doing once a month shows. I was like, I really need a favor. Is there any chance you'll be our new home?
Yeah.
So that that was a tough experience.
Sure.
It was one of the first times, because Bend is not really a very diverse place.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'm
from Burns.
Oh, so Bend is diverse compared to Burns.
See, now
it's
you
a big
know.
city.
You're probably looking at me and like, why are you complaining?
I'm like, wait, you guys have a black person? That's crazy.
That was Zane and Burns.
That was just me. Yeah, and then I left.
The one that was
I
there.
did. I changed the whole census. It was the whole census. It just flipped it on its head.
Way to go.
Thank you.
And it was that was my first time having, and at the time I didn't even understand what I was having to do, but like a sense of allyship and having to make a choice between, do I basically protect the freedom of speech of this person of color, or do I protect
someone's feelings at a venue or something?
Mediocre white man's feelings.
Yeah.
And I chose to protect the freedom of speech of the person of color.
Yes.
But I have a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I had never been in a position of power up to this point.
Okay.
I had always said up to this point that I love being a right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
I like having somebody else who's making decisions, and it's my job to make those decisions happy. That's where I'd always been. That's where I was happy.
Not a bad place to be.
I don't want the vision.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be responsible for how the vision comes out.
Yep.
But if you want to give me tasks, I will do them.
Sure.
And so I had a lot of anxiety making that decision. Did I make the right decision? And of course, and this was in I want to say it was 2017. So there were not many people in comedy then that were kind of pro the idea of having content restrictions on mics at that point. And at that moment, I was obviously standing up for, we're not going to restrict this.
Yeah.
But that last mic we had there, I did have to say, here are the things you can't say. And as a group of comedians, they said everything that they couldn't say.
That's crazy. That didn't even sound like comedians.
Yeah.
Pushing the envelope.
So, and that was hard to sit through and like worry about the consequences and like, is this gonna get us in trouble? Because as a producer, you carry the anxiety of everything.
Yeah,
sure.
People can walk away, but it does like fall on you at the end of the day. If people mess it up for everyone, it's your fault because you produced it, you brought them there or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that was hard from a people standpoint of like, do I get really hardcore with this and stop this mic and say, no, you can't say these things? Or do I stand up for the fact that they're really speaking up against something that I believe they should be speaking up against and take the hit? And I ended up just choosing to kind of take the hit. Yeah. And nothing really came of it anyway. Yeah. And then we ended up with a really beautiful comedy home out of it, which was wonderful. And I only DJ'd there for a couple more years. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, first off, thank you for, standing up in the way as an ally. A lot of people are like, yeah, no, I'm there for them. And then when they need to be, they're just like, well, I mean, what if my thing is at stake? I don't want to
lose what I have.
Thank you for validating my allyhood.
Absolutely. Yeah. Puff up your afro a little bit. You just grew one.
Does that mean I'm invited?
You are. I'm not even invited to the cookout, but we can go together. But that being said, trying to figure out how to navigate other people's feelings in a space of trying to do what you're trying to do is a very, very delicate thing.
Figuring out how to navigate those feelings and also when and how to prioritize them.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a really good point, too.
Because there comes a point when you end up in a position of leadership that you end up having to prioritize people's feelings. Yeah. You know that you're going to make a decision that's going to hurt people's feelings.
Sure.
So then you have to prioritize, is it worth hurting people's feelings?
Yeah.
Do I have a moral obligation to hurt these feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, being able to judge, that somebody's going to be hurt by this regardless, but like I can reduce the amount of harm that comes out of it by picking where it kind of lands.
Which is a wonderful skill as a leader to have, but it is incredibly stressful. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people don't give people in positions of power enough grace when it comes to that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot of negative feedback from people.
Sure.
And you can get a lot of pressure from people. Sure. And then you add on the fact that I am a woman.
Yeah.
You add on the fact that I am not a stereotypically attractive woman. So I don't have the benefit of someone who maybe doesn't like the decision I made still might want to have sex with me, so they're still going to be kind.
Yeah. Right.
Because they're, I don't have that pretty privilege, right?
Sure.
And so you make a decision that upsets them. And unfortunately, I find this a lot in mediocre straight white men. Mm-hmm. I hate to,
There's a pattern.
Pigeonhole people.
Listen. Stereotypes exist for a reason, so I can laugh about them. I think is that the reason?
And so you don't prioritize the feelings of a group that is used to being the most prioritized when it comes to how they feel about a situation, and you end up with a lot of hate.
And
a lot of recoil and a lot of
What's been like, if you don't mind sharing, like what's been kind of like your experience with like receiving some of that hate, especially coming out of like Central Oregon? I can imagine they'd say some pretty nasty stuff.
Well, and the thing, and a lot of it comes down to being territorial, which makes no sense to me. Comedy, laughter is not a finite resource. So just because someone is producing a comedy show doesn't mean that people aren't going to laugh at yours, right? And it's just that same kind of competition within comedians. Just because someone's getting a lot of laughs doesn't mean you're going to get less laughs later.
Or even the idea that like, oh, somebody got booked, so now I can't get booked. It's like, well, it doesn't. You don't need to look at it like that. You need to be excited that they got booked and look at the potential that there's a show you could one day be booked on.
But instead you get people with expectations and assuming that they deserve things, really going after the people that have to make a decision that's contrary to that thought process. And that's social media has probably made that worse. I think social media is where I've had the majority of the negativity coming at me, and so you can see it. It's it's hard enough to hear that you're fat, or that people hate you, or that everybody in the Pacific Northwest says that Central Oregon is a horrible scene for comedy and it's all my fault. Like,
wow.
Very specific.
I carry, it's amazing. I carry a lot of power with people when they're mad at me. Like, then suddenly I control the world. Like, I have ruined careers. I produce shows in Bend, Oregon.
And they'll never get booked anywhere.
There's no career to ruin here.
Sure.
I've done the most road work of anyone in Bend this year, and I've done 4 shows. And that's not to say that I will always be a proponent of the talent in Bend, and I think Bend has more talent than people realize, and I think a lot of people sleep on that. But anyway, that's getting off track. So I get a lot of that kind of feedback. It kind of comes down to she's not as blank as she thinks she's in. She's not as powerful as she thinks she is. She's not as important as she thinks she is.
But then they say these things that contradict that by saying that you have all this power. Then you're ruining people's careers.
I ruin people's careers.
You simultaneously have no power and have ruined everybody.
Or I have the power to take venues from people. I don't own any venue. At no point did I get to make a decision about who a venue gets to work with. That's not my call.
The venue gets to decide whether they want to work with different people or not.
That's not my choice. And what's hard about that, especially for somebody with anxiety and with depression, and honestly, who struggles with suicidality, you get enough of that negativity and it starts to reinforce what you're already fighting.
For sure.
And I think for me, that's why every 6 months or so, I'd be like, I want to quit producing because there'd be so much drama, there'd be so much toxicity, there's so much going on, and so many people saying that I'm the problem, and just constantly. That finally be like, you know what? It's time to step away. And then you step away and it still doesn't stop, and they still come after you. And it's added with, she's not producing shows anymore. Ding dong, the Wicked Witch is dead.
It must have been too hard for them or something.
Right? And we still fucking hate her, and she's still a narcissist, and she's da-da-da. Well, that to the point, you're like, maybe it's better if I'm just not here.
Well, and I think that that's a really important thing to kind of bring up, is that like, you already have all these pre-existing ideas of yourself, and when people start reinforcing those in a very negative way, it's hard not to like latch onto that. Like, I'm already fighting feelings of inferiority. You telling me that I suck isn't like it's not helping me grow. It's not helping you grow. Like, it really just kind of gets to like a toxic point where there's nothing really coming out of it except more negativity.
And that's why bullying, harassment is really a mental health issue. Because even if you aren't in that place, it can take you to that place. And if you are already in that place,
definitely it can take you deeper.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that someone in a position of power is still a human being.
Yeah.
You know, just because we're making decisions that affect your lives, and I use air quotes because I'm talking about stand-up comedy in Bend, Oregon. Like, I'm not really making decisions that's like keeping people from paying rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're in a position
Pay pretty good for these shows.
I mean, yeah, like, oh no, you lost a chance to make $20 every 2 months.
But the drink tickets, how am I supposed to drink for my family?
I'm supposed to provide free alcohol for my kids.
And then they equate you making that decision with the ability to speak truth to power. But first of all, I would argue that it's not truth.
Yeah.
But they think that means they get to take it to a next level. There's a difference between someone saying to me, I don't agree with your business decision, and
cutting you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible difference.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, especially as
one of them provides rooms to grow, the other one just points out a problem.
And I think when you talk about, you know, mediocre white men who are used to being in a position to be able to tell a woman whatever they want, whenever they want, and now there's a woman in power, they're even more likely to cut you down so they can feel better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that turns, that's hard.
It
is. Well, no, I definitely appreciate you like sharing that experience because, you know, whether it's producing or it's being in the entertainment industry as a femme, like that's not something that's not a perspective that I have. It's not one that I really understand. I've seen what Amanda's gone through, but even then I don't really understand the experience. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
Yeah, cool. We're going to take a real quick commercial break and we'll be right back with a smoke break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio.
Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. Come explore the spaces between friends. DJ 1017 takes you into a universe unlike any other. From Pink Floyd to the Flaming Lips and anything else interstellar. The spaces between friends with DJ 1017. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Come explore with us here on Shady Pines Radio.
And we are back with the smoke break. We are here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Amanda Lindeo.
Hi, friends.
And Katy Ipock.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. So the next topic I wanted to talk about, and they kind of lead together, people pleasing.
I am a huge people pleaser. And I think I realized I was a people pleaser when I was 20 years old. It's my ex-fiance. My ex at the time, he wasn't my ex at my time. We were engaged. We were in the midst of an intimate act, and he pooped on my stomach.
Oh.
And I did not take a shower until after making sure he had an orgasm. And I also literally used the words, "It's okay, it happens to everybody." Yeah. So I literally chose ensuring that his ego was safe over my basic hygiene. And that was like the first moment as I was in that shower scrubbing my stomach that I was like, you know what? Something about this isn't right.
I might have given away too much of myself in a moment.
Like that's what that goes back to childhood. You know, when your parents want a people pleaser and you are rewarded for pleasing them, not for doing the right thing, but for doing the they thing. You get trained to do that.
Well, and I think that's a really I guess like in a sense, that's a very eye-opening experience because it's like it really makes you understand that like I put this person's ego or needs in front of my own comfort and what I wanted out of a situation. And that's really, to me, what people pleasing is taking your comfort and saying that can take a backseat because I need to make sure you're okay. Amanda, what about you with people pleasing? Is that something that you find yourself doing currently? You used to do something you broke the habit of?
I guess in relationships more so than like in other situations. Because that's like a needing to feel loved kind of thing. I don't want to come off as mean, But I feel like with friends, I'm more able to communicate my needs and not feel worried about it. But like, especially in a new relationship, it's like, I don't want to upset this person, so I'll do whatever they want. I've like been training myself out of that.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where it was almost like, I want to scare people away and just be a selfish brat. If they still like me, then they really love me, which is also not good. It's like going the opposite direction. So just communicating clearly what you want and what you need. And also like when you have that moment where you feel like something's not right, to address it in the moment, because I used to like trying to convince myself that wasn't what was happening. And then it would just like stick around, and then there's like weird resentment and stuff that builds. So just in the moment be like, hey, I didn't like that. Like, don't do that again. And then people are like, oh, okay. And they don't do it again. Or they're like, well, I don't know why you're upset. Then you're like, oh, well, fuck you. Okay. That's like an instant way to find out if that person actually cares about your comfort as well.
Yeah. And I really like that you brought up just addressing things in the moment.
Yeah.
Excuse me, is because that's something that like I have a really hard time with.
It's tough, but you got to keep doing it.
Yeah,
it's easier.
So fucking uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable.
So hard.
What if they like me less because I said I had a problem with the thing that's
but then that's good because you establish a boundary right in the moment.
Well, yeah, and
she can respect it or not.
I'll give you like one second to interject that. But something that like I realized or something that I guess I've always kind of preached is like, fuck you and I love you are two things that like you should always say sober, but are so much easier to say when you're drunk. But the thing is I think both of those things are things that you should say to everybody at one point. Because I love you is recognizing that this person is an important person to you, and fuck you is setting a boundary. And I think that if you love somebody, that you should be able to set a boundary if they've crossed it and be like, hey, what was that? Was not cool. Like that's what just happened there. Not cool. Like if you can't say I love you and fuck you and still be friends, then you're probably not friends.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. It took me a while. I wasn't sure if I was on board with you, but now I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, well, you've told me fuck you quite a few times.
I've also said I love you too.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we're still friends, so can't prove me wrong. So yeah, people pleasing is definitely it's a really tricky thing. Where do you think that kind of desire to make sure that people are comfortable before you comes from in your case?
It definitely comes from childhood. It definitely comes from my relationship with my mother. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think it also comes from my relationship with my siblings. My sister is 12 years older than I am. My brother is 8 years older than I am. And so there was never acceptance from them because I was not only was I younger, I was way younger.
Way younger.
Like no one wants to take their elementary school sister to a college party. You know what I mean?
Like, as they shouldn't.
But between those three connections, it created this both lack of affirmation, but only affirmation through service. Only affirmation through doing what you want.
Yeah. What can I do for you that will get me the validation that I'm looking for?
Will give me any attention whatsoever.
Yeah, sure.
And with the siblings, like the age gap that big, like they kind of do treat the little one like you have to do this for me, kind of like make you be their servant essentially. So So it comes from childhood. It's ingrained. It's one of those shadow work, spiritual gardening, whatever you want to call it, things that I still have to untie in the back of my head and figure out how to both work around and work with and kind of appreciate that it's not always a bad thing if you can put boundaries on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up is just that like the thing about people pleasing is that once you realize you're doing it, it gives you the opportunity to set boundaries so that way you can be happy in your life. Because obviously you're taking care of everybody else. Like you're taking care of your other responsibilities. Your boss is happy, your partner's happy, your kid, you know what I mean? Like all these other people are taken care of. Now it's like, okay, how do I set boundaries in my life so that way I can make sure that I feel as comfortable with myself as I possibly can.
Totally.
Learning to not lose yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Against Eminem's advice. He suggested it, so I was just like, in the moment, I want it. What about you, Amanda? I guess. When do you catch yourself trying to people please, and like how do you kind of combat that?
Like I said, just in relationships in the beginning because I want it to work and I want people to like me. Well, like partners more so. I don't know why that's such a thing. Probably just like a lack of love or like self-esteem in that area.
Yeah. You feel like they can provide you something with their love that like maybe you wouldn't be able to find in a friendship. So you're like, this is a one I need to keep happy.
Because with friends, I feel like, you find your people and they love you for who you are. And I don't want fake friends. I've never been interested in.
I want a fake partner.
Because I just didn't feel like I was lovable or something in a romantic way. So it's like, okay, well, I have to be and it's like pressures of being a woman and like the perfect woman for someone. There's a lot of shit that we have to do to like keep a man, and it's like all articles are in every magazine ever that we're like fed when we're children, you know, like my mom's magazines or whatever, waiting rooms. So a lot of that is like, what can you do to keep your man, instead of like, how can you not be a piece of shit to your woman? There's never that article.
Right. Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
So a lot
start
of
writing a new magazine.
Yeah. Oh, I will. How to go being a little bitch. Tell you love her already. God. So yeah, a lot of it is just like, well, you should be different if you want a man to love you, because he's not going to love you for being a chubby, hairy, sassy broad. You better be a small, petite, hairless little angel child or whatever the fuck weird fucking gross shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, I better make sure that they're comfortable, because if I'm too much myself, they won't love me anymore. But if you're my friend, I'm like, yeah, you fucking like me for me, right?
Yeah. Well, and I found it kind of interesting that you had brought up the idea that like, oh, like if like with these people, if I'm myself, then I'll find my people. But it's like that's almost like a something that I feel like we need to carry over into relationships.
Oh, for sure.
Is that like I need to be able to show up as myself, set boundaries as I see fit, and have the people stick around that I want to stick.
Yeah,
around.
to the point where I'm in like a healthy relationship, I didn't believe it, because I was like, there's no way this dude likes me for me. I was like, you're like too perfect, and he's just like, he doesn't think he's perfect, or that neither of us think that we're like too good for one another. We both enjoy like making the other person happy, but it's not like I'm making you happy so you won't leave me and you'll love me. It's not like a desperate thing. It's like we both want to like please the other person in a healthy way, which is weird.
Well, and I think,
for me,
well, I think that's really important, is like recognizing that like being in service to other people or doing things in a way that is beneficial to them isn't a bad thing. It's just making sure that you aren't giving away a part of yourself in order to do that.
What Katy said about that too is like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, how can I make sure that like this is still a part of me, and it's beautiful to want to like love and help and do things for people, but I make sure that you're not doing it instead of something you need, or in hopes that they'll do it back, but you don't tell them, hey, I would really like if you also did this for me too.
Definitely. I guess for like me, people pleasing, it comes from like a space of I was always like, as a mixed race person, I was always trying to find a way to make other people feel comfortable, like because I was Black and people would be afraid of me. I'm like, oh, how do you present yourself in a way that like people aren't immediately just repulsed by the sight of you and in fear that they might be stolen from or whatever. So it came from this place of like just trying to make other people comfortable. And to a certain extent, I'm appreciative of the things that I've picked up in making people comfortable, but at the same time, it's like there was a lot of times where I would allow abuse towards me because I was trying to please these people. Like, oh, you can call me whatever. Oh, you can say the meanest thing, and oh, he's saying it because he likes you, and that's where I found myself giving away parts of myself in order to be liked, and that's really. It's something that I've really tried to make a conscious effort to make sure that like I'm not doing now, because it's being. When I had that, I guess, near-death experience, it was a near-death experience. But having that moment, it really made me realize that like if everybody liked me or nobody liked me, if I was going to die in that moment, I was going to die in that moment. Yeah. And so going forward, I've just made this kind of like conscious, thought in my head of it as much as I thought that it mattered at a point, like I have to understand that like being liked and making sure that everybody's good before you're good it's not going to do you any good if your time's up, and I want to be able to, in that moment that like my time is up, be like, hey, I did the things that were good for me that did not cause harm to others. So yeah, I think that's definitely an important place to build from.
Right.
So
finding that motivation internally instead of like externally.
Yeah.
exactly. Doing it for the right reason.
Yeah.
And I think like the negative side of people pleasing is just having a fear of boundaries. So like if you're not afraid of setting a boundary, then it's okay if you want to like do nice things for people.
Yeah.
So just like don't be afraid that if you set a boundary, they're not going to like you anymul because those are
Right.
people you shouldn't really want to like you anyways.
Yeah.
But that's really hard to admit that because what if you really like them? You'll put up with some form of abuse, which is not okay.
Right.
You'll need to have that hard boundary of like, if this person doesn't accept the line I'm drawing, I don't want them in my life.
Yeah, then I don't accept this person.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely. Cool. Well, we're going to take a real quick commercial break and we'll be right back with the smoke break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio.
Patches, come here, boy. I love Patches, and that's why I love Patch Dog.
Hey, Dad, were you calling me?
No, I was calling the dog Patches.
Yes, Father?
Oh, not you, honey. Patch Dog makes custom iron-on embroidery patches. I can give them my design, and in a couple weeks, I've got custom patches. They can be of my daughter Patches, my son Patches Jr., or even my dog Patches.
Yes, dear.
No, that's Patches, my wife. I'm just making a commercial. And because Patch Dog loves you so much, use the code SPR10 for a 10% discount.
Yay.
And you know they've got that free domestic shipping. For more information, check out patch.dog and fall in love with patches like me.
Did you
Yes,
call me?
dear.
No, I'm making a commercial for Patch Dog. Patch Dog.
I'm Zane Thomas, and I just slammed that coffee.
You sure did.
Welcome back to the Smoke Break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio. I am wired for sounds.
Yeah.
And your host, Zane Thomas, here with Amanda Lindio
Hi, friends.
and Katy Ipock.
Hey.
All right, cool. So we are going to move on to the joke break. Favorite thing about the joke break, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not, just like comedy. This week, our question is upside down. This week, our question is, what's the furthest you've ever gone in the name of love, a crush, or getting laid?
Oh, no.
This is a very bro-y question. I don't know. I did whiteface one time. It's people pleasing. I don't know. She seemed into it. Let's go around the circle. What about you, Amanda? What is it? The furthest you've
What's
ever
your
gone?
deepest shame for love? I'm like, God, can we skip this?
How far have you driven to get laid?
Oh my God. I feel like this kind of fits in our theme with people pleasing, which is something that
I mean,
kinda
We can
works.
tie it back.
Yeah.
Being a people pleaser to get people pleased.
Hey, there we go. Nice. Pew, pew, pew. That's a good finger gun.
I was like, I kind of want to watch you go to comedy.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh man. What's the farthest I've gone? Oh boy. I think just like I don't know. I'm scared. I wanna. I was like,
let's get real, bro.
okay,
Come on.
I was like young and I was I
I am so excited.
I liked this dude and he was older and he was in a band and I would like pretend that I didn't know where he was and show up. I don't like it. Make it stop. Yeah.
cute.
And I was like friends with his friends. So like I would go places where like his bandmates and his friends were and be like, oh, I didn't know you were going to be here. Weird. And like, of course I fucking did. And
You
then
saw
if
his
he wa-
Facebook post.
Yeah. But then if he was on MySpace. This
I was
is-
gonna
sorry.
say,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
this sounds like an AOL instant message, like
Yeah.
a away message.
Yeah. And then like if he wasn't there, I'd be like, oh, this party sucks. No, I would totally go anyways. I don't know. I guess just like my best friend and I would like pretend we were into stuff we were into to get boys
Yeah.
to like us, which is like kind of normal, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate this question.
You've trauma dumped enough. No.
I feel like there is a chance for a lot of people that this question is trauma dumping.
Mhm.
Right. Because for some people, chasing love is a part of filling a wound.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
filling, maybe the daddy-sized hole in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Mother wound, father
I'm
wound.
for sure calling it my daddy-sized hole in my heart. My father's going to hate it.
Will you fill my daddy hole?
Yeah, will you?
I have said that.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
I have stripper level daddy issues without the stripper level confidence.
Dang.
That is what kept me from the pool, and I regret it. I wish I would have still done it.
Still time. There's still
Hey,
time.
I know your dreams.
Exactly. You can be a comedian. Come on. I mean,
A dream is a wish your heart makes.
so what about you? Was it the daddy hole thing or?
I was thinking as Amanda was talking, because why listen to Amanda? Just kidding.
No, I didn't want anyone to listen. I was like, everyone turn away.
I think about all the times when I turned 18 that I was going on Plenty of Fish, because Plenty of Fish has been around that fucking long. It's been around that long. And literally put into the age of what I was looking for, literally put in 30 to 60 at 18.
Daddy hole.
Yeah.
The dad range.
Yeah.
You know, how many men that I met in AOL chat rooms that I then met. There was one, I was 18, he was 30 something. At 11:30 at night.
Oh, God.
I walked to the library and met him in a dark, unlit parking lot. Let him drive me around. Ended up on top of Pilot Butte, if you know anything about Bend. Pilot Butte.
That's where you smoke pot.
And made out with him because he asked. And my whole hope the whole time was, man, I hope this means he's going to become my boyfriend and he's going to love me. I was literally doing it. And at the time, I didn't know that I was basically trying to get this, somebody else to do what my parents should have done, right? Instead, I'm putting myself in a situation that should have turned out very differently.
Yeah, sure.
That should have been a Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
So I have, and that's not the young example. Like, I've done that a lot. I've put my physical, I've put myself in harm's way.
Yeah.
I have risked my safety in hopes of receiving any sort of affirmation whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so that's bad.
Yeah.
I've definitely looked back on stuff and been like, wow, that could have ended real badly. Just
For sure.
being super drunk in Chicago and hooking up with strangers or just stuff that now I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
Oh, I must have needed some kind of love or affirmation or something, but I'm very glad it didn't end up worse.
Yeah.
But, wow, that was real careless of me.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do it. Okay. So,
trauma.
I'm trying to think. Let's do it. I guess mine just kind of tracks back to, I guess, the people pleasing thing. There was a lot of times where I would just take the parts of myself that I found unique or I really liked about myself, and I would just lie about them. I remember my cousin. I'm pretty sure he has Asperger's. Love him to death, but he just really had a hard time socializing. So there would be a lot of times that we would go out, we'd be hanging out, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons." I'm like, "Josh, shut up! We didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. We were playing football in our man clothes." I wasn't really great at improvising.
Our man clothes. They're like, that sounds real weird. I wish you were just playing Dungeons and Dragons.
In your little boy clothes.
Yeah, exactly. It probably would have been better. But yeah, I guess it kind of just goes back to that, where you're giving away a part of yourself or putting yourself in a situation that you normally wouldn't, where you're like, what part do I have to what do I have to answer correctly so that way you will feel for me the way that I feel for you. And that's something that I've realized with time that it's ultimately not worth, because that's not something I can maintain. Because I would I show up on a date, I'm like, "Hey baby, what's up?" How long can I do that voice? How long can that's basically me trying to be that person, this cool person. And yeah, there was just this idea that I had to be a certain amount of cool, I had to be a certain amount of, where I would watch movies and stuff and see how black people interacted with the world and be like, okay, I need to reflect this. Something that always gets thrown around is people be like, "Oh, you should date my friend. She's into black guys." And I'm like, I'm not what she means by that. Like, I know what you mean, but I don't think I'm what she's looking for. And like, she's thinking a little bit cooler than me. But it's realizing after having healthier relationships, Amanda being one of those examples of me being able to show up as my authentic self and being able to see that like that's something that somebody can accept and the right person will accept for a certain amount of time. But that amount of time is just as long as it lasts. And it's the amount of growing that I guess you kind of do from, like we do learn all these really powerful things from negative experiences, but I think you can learn just as much from the positive ones if you are able to walk away and frame them in a way that like, okay, like not everybody is going to like me. Not every girl that I like is going to feel the same way about me, but there is going to be somebody who feels the same way about me. And it didn't take any extra effort. It didn't take, me saying I like these kinds of movies and sitting through like 2 hours, it's 7 hours of a TV show I don't care about to be like, okay, cool. So we kissed her and sweet. This is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think that, it's the extent that we go to try and feel love reciprocated can be such an interesting thing. So you're go ahead.
Oh, no,
you're breathing.
Breathing. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, no, you're all good. I ran out of stuff and I was just like, Amanda, fill it in. Ask questions,
I'm
please.
I don't want to talk anymore about my shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, Zane, keep talking. You keep
Drama up. But yeah, no, I guess it's just I guess just really reframing things in a way that like going forward that every relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, that like you're not giving away parts of yourself and you're not putting yourself in situations that like you have to look back at and be like, yeah, that could have gone wrong. It didn't, but like, the fact that it didn't doesn't mean that it never will. And yeah.
And I sometimes have that relationship with an audience as a whole in a sense that I will sometimes prioritize what I call the vibe of the room over my personal safety. And as a woman, these are situations that we can get. I mean, it's a situation anyone can get into.
Sure.
For example, I had a time and the show was over, but the audience was still there. I had a man come up and forcibly put his hands around me, put his hands in my belt loops, pull me towards him, and start talking about how he's always wanted to fuck me and his wife is totally okay with it. And I was trying to say,
I'm not.
Yeah. And like I did the whole, like I put my hands on his chest. He was taller, he was bigger, and I had my hands on his chest. And I was being nice. I was being polite because in my head I was like, I don't want to mess up this room. I don't want to be the reason why people are suddenly uncomfortable. I chose the room's
comfort over
vibe
your own.
over my personal safety. And that's one of those things like that I have to work on as a people pleaser. Like it is okay. It would have totally been okay.
Yeah.
Totally acceptable for me to throw my hands up in the air and say I need help. Or even get mad at him. Right?
Absolutely.
Like,
but instead I was like, nope.
Yeah.
We gotta keep this small. We have to keep this quiet. We have to keep this.
Yeah, no, totally. That happens a lot of times too. Like people get drunk when I'm like hosting, and afterwards they'll come up to me and tell me they want to do comedy. One time, this guy like kept getting in my space, and he was an older gentleman. And like the place I do comedy on Mondays is a gay bar, so he could have been gay. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's like consent to put your hands all over me. But I was like hosting the Halloween costume party, and he kept like putting his arm around me, and I was like, "Hey, it'd be great if you didn't touch me right now." And then people laughed, but it's like it was to the point.
I love you so much.
It was awesome. I was like, great, yeah. Like it was short to the point. It wasn't super mean, and he like got the point. But I said it a few times, and he was drunk and kept getting in my bubble. But it was like on stage during a costume contest. I just said it real quick, and it was like funny enough and direct enough that he got the point, and the room was like, "Don't fuck with Amanda." But it didn't mess up the vibe of the room. But like, there's been times where I let people kind of, keep doing whatever they're doing because I'm like, well, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I don't want to be a bitch because then if like people feel weird now that I said something.
Heaven forbid when a woman stands up for her boundaries.
Yeah, she gets a label.
She's a bitch.
Yeah, you should just be okay with weird guys touching you. Or he's gay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the fuck it is. If it's a woman getting handsy, I'd be like, all right, take it easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I didn't okay this, it's not okay. Like, it doesn't matter who's doing it. Doesn't matter the context under which they're doing it. If I'm not cool, it's not cool.
You didn't ask. Don't touch me.
Absolutely. We are going to take a real quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back with the Smoke Break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio.
We captured the taste and sound, only here on Open Country. Sundays, noon to 1 with your host, Anti-Vandal. Folk music with Anti-Vandal. We captured the taste and sound on this Open Country. Noon to 1, Sundays, with your host, Anti-Vandal. Here on Shady Pines Radio.
And we are back with the Smoke Break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines Radio, as well as Pretty Dope Experience Radio. I'm your host, your old pal Zane, here with Amanda Lindell.
Hi, friends.
And Katy Ipock.
Hey.
Pew pew. We are at the last section of the Smoke Break. One of my favorite parts, where I get asked the question, what are you excited for?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you got it. You're already ready.
So I am so excited because my first comedy album is releasing next week, November 18th. I mean, it's self-produced. It was recorded live. There were not as many people in the room as I had hoped. But it's still like it releases and it's self-produced. I went through DistroKid to distribute it.
Sure.
So it's going to be on like Spotify and iTunes. And Apple Music. So I'm really excited. It's really the culmination of 6 years of writing, and it's all the jokes that I'm ready to let go.
Yeah.
And that it seems like that's the only way to truly properly honor your material.
Yeah.
So
that's what I tell people too with the album. It's like, I know comics who have a lot of material who've been doing it a long time. They don't have an album. It's like, well, you don't have to do those jokes anymore. Those jokes that work. If you're tired of them, you can almost retire them, but immortalize them. So they live on forever in this album, and you never have to tell them again if you don't want to. But people can listen to like the greatest hits if they want.
Yeah. That joke will still exist regardless of whether or not you continue telling it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Hell yeah.
So you recorded your first album. How long is it?
So it actually only turned out to be 33 minutes.
33 minutes. Hey, nothing wrong with that. That's all anyone has attention for.
That I think it was because there were less people in the room, so the laugh breaks weren't as long. Because it's obviously you run the same 45 for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And so I knew it was 45 minutes material, but it came down to 33. And so I think it was just not as many laugh breaks. It doesn't mean that it's not hilarious. It's hilarious. Please listen. It's great.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's still 33 minutes. Like that's nothing to sneeze at either.
No, God no. I mean, that's there's so many people. Like I'm meeting like a lot of like beginning comics that are just like, oh my God, like, why is this person getting booked? Oh my God, I should get on because I can do 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, well, you might be able to talk for 15 minutes. Can you make jokes for 15? Well, isn't it the same thing? I'm like,
no,
it's not. It's really not.
Yeah. I think that people like over and under, like, I don't want to say exaggerate, but I think people either like over or undershoot how much time they have.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on like how long they've been doing it. People who are newer think they have more time, but it's like you might have done 3 different open mic sets. That doesn't mean that's 10 minutes.
Exactly. Exactly.
And does it flow well together, or is it really weird and choppy? Is it like hard to listen to unless it's in 3-4 minute sections or whatever?
Yeah.
And then I know people who have like, I've seen them do it so many times in a couple different 10-minute sets. So like, I don't even know if I have 20 or 30.
Yeah.
I guess you fucking
Amanda's looking at me. Because
yes, you do.
Well,
I went on the road with Sabrina, and she was my feature. We went to Boise, and she was like, I don't know, maybe like 15, 20. I was like, I bet you have the closer to 30. I bet, because we had 2 different shows. And I was like, you're doing 20 minutes twice. I bet you there's going to be like, there's not going to be exactly the same. And there's even stuff that she was like, oh, I didn't even do that joke, or stuff that, we remind each other of each other's material. So I think it just depends on like how green is the person, because the greener they are, they probably have less time they think. But if you've been doing it a while, I think that you probably have more time than you think. And I've done sets where it's like 30, 40. One time I did an hour when you were my feature up in wherever that was.
There was nobody in that room.
There was nobody. But I was able to talk for that long and do material that I hadn't done in a while. And I got off stage and I was like, fuck. And I realized I had stuff I didn't even say. So it's like I had more time than I thought, because I was putting in maybe stuff that wasn't as funny to fill the time, but then forgot things that I really wanted to do. So it's like, okay, you have to like constantly like glue it and cut it and glue it, copy and paste it just over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
To get a solid like 30 to an hour is no small feat. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's really exciting. I'm in this transition where I'm going from having a production company and putting all my people pleasing power into, creating opportunity for other comics, and now transitioning into actually focusing on my career.
Absolutely.
I'm not a huge fan of the snow, so like I'm hoping this is the last road gig I do before winter's over. But I will have winter to try to create the best booking 5-minute video I can and all that kind of stuff, and start hitting the ground running and doing more road work. But I wouldn't have been able to do it had I not started prioritizing myself. And part of that was to stop being chained to 17 plus shows a month on top of 2 open mics a week, and like making my life a dedication to other people, which is what it turned into.
Well, and I like that you framed it in that way of like the I have spent my time focusing on other people, but now it's time for me to take that same exact energy, which is obviously very productive energy. That's why all these people got shows. That's why these shows existed. That's why the mics existed. So it's you have the ability to create. So being able to focus it more inwards, I can't wait to see what you come up with.
I'm so excited. And it's and part of the reason why I can do that is because there are more people in Bend now producing than there was when I started. Tease Bang Boom is a new production company in Bend, and they're coming out and they're doing shows at the places that I was doing, and they took over a mic that I was producing. So like there isn't less stage time.
Exactly.
There's more time for you to like focus on what you want to do without all the pressures of everyone else too.
There's less stage time that I am in control of. There's less stage time that I am responsible for. But the people pleaser in me is stoked that there's not less stage time for the scene as a whole. Because there's a chance that guilt. There's a chance like that was
if I don't do this, it can't be. Nobody can do it now. You know? Like there's not that space for somebody to show up now.
Turning down shows was hard, even if I didn't want to do it, if it wasn't right for me, if I had too much on my plate. But if I turn it down for me, I'm turning it down for the other 4 or 5 people that could also be in that show. So it's been a real change in mentality, but also realizing this means that I do get to focus on providing local comics with new opportunities too. I'm bringing a comic with me to the road gig in Portland tonight who's never done a road gig before. This is his first time getting out.
That's cool.
And I have, one of our plus ones is also a comic. And so the more I will get out there, the more I can give people opportunity to experience it as well.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Awesome.
Bringing people with you is a wonderful thing to do.
I wish Amanda did that. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just we do that for each other all the time.
We have a show in December. So Amanda, what are you excited for?
I'm excited. I just started. So before this, I was bartending a brunch shift, training with my best friend and wife. We used to work together at a little crusty dive bar in Vancouver, and we had so much fun, but we knew it was going to last forever. And I'm glad that we both moved on and did other things. But she reached out to me. I was like, hey, we need like a Saturday, maybe Sunday, but for now, just Saturday brunch bartender. And it's a venue in Vancouver I've wanted to produce comedy at. And because now I'm working there, the owner is like, oh, yeah, what when she does comedy here? And Elizabeth is like, yeah, she's been wanting to do that for years. It's just so funny. But I'm like, okay, cool. It's just like getting my foot in the door. Yeah. Kind of a cozy shift. It'll get busy, of course, but it'll be money. I work with my best friend. Yeah. And it kind of put my foot in the door to be like, I already do comedy in this area, you know, and it's close to home. It's not in Portland, and it's to bring more comedy to the Vancouver area. Yeah. So I'm just excited to, maybe produce another show that's kind of my thing. Which I haven't wanted to in a long time, but I've wanted this venue for a while. So it's like if I can focus on doing something here, we'll see. Hopefully on Sundays at Brick House. Stay tuned, everybody. Okay. But I'm very excited about that.
That's really awesome. Well, I've watched you kind of produce a lot over the years, and I've seen the burnout that kind of comes with that.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's why when Katy was going through it, I was like, girl.
It's a thing.
I can feel it. I can feel it over here.
It's hard.
It is.
And I feel like burnout is so common within, especially like comedy production. And I've always equated that, first of all, to imposter syndrome, right?
Yep.
Because everyone deals with that all the time. Everyone has imposter syndrome. Like, but I've always thought that it doesn't help that there is no accreditation for comedy production whatsoever, or even, many other art forms. There is nothing and no one that can come to you and, take the saber on your shoulder and say, I have now dubbed you able to do this.
Yeah.
You should do this.
Keep doing it until you either are successful or you're so tired you stop.
So you pretty much,
both. I guess you can be successful and also stop too.
Yeah.
it's one of those careers where you have to say that to yourself.
Yeah.
And then the imposter syndrome gets to you. And then you make decisions. People get mad at them and it pokes holes into that well, maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't do this.
Yeah. Totally.
Because you have nothing to stand on in terms of no. This thing says that I can make this decision.
Yeah. And being like ready to do it is really important. I did it out of necessity because I wanted to, make shows and make spaces for things to grow. And then it became just like a burden. And then I burned out and I was like, I'm never doing that again, or I'm not going to produce with anyone but me. And I had like my friend kind of like convinced me to help, but then he kind of stepped back and I was like, did you just trick me into doing this again? What the fuck, James? James Tolson.
I was like, let's get the full name in there.
Yeah. But he was even someone who said like, hey, I think that, you should find something that's yours. I think you'd be ready to produce something with your name and your like talents. When you're ready, I would love for you to do that. And I'm just like, yeah. Come November, I feel like I'm going to be out of a bad relationship. I'm going to be, focused on myself and what I want to do. So I'm excited to do that. What are you excited for, Zane?
Yeah. What am I excited for? So I spoke a little bit on our last episode about having celebrated my 2 years of sobriety.
Yay!
Nice.
Super grateful for that. But I guess besides that, tonight, right after this show, I'm heading over to do a music show.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm super grateful just to have multiple, I guess, outlets. Because there was a period where I guess like either comedy or music was my only thing, and if I wasn't getting booked in that, then I felt like I didn't have worth. And I feel like we have that tendency to kind of tie our self-worth to the bookings, which is why a lot of people get upset with that, is because they're like, well, if I'm not booked, then I'm not worth something, and that's your fault. But on top of that, I've also decided with Taylor Barrett and Scott Stills that we're going to start a music comedy show.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do some riffing and stuff. I think like the three of us just like
oh man, it's goofy.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I feel like I finally have space for it. There was definitely a period where I was busy for the sake of being busy and
overworking myself,
burning myself out.
Yeah, still learning that.
Okay. We don't need to keep listing.
Right.
No. I'm just kidding. But
we all three have dealt with all of those things: overwork, burnout.
Yeah. But it's you do that. I feel like it's almost an inevitability in a lot of cases, is you burn yourself out, and it's how you bounce back from that.
Totally.
It's when you
have those boundaries
you
though
do.
now, because you don't want to burn out again.
Exactly.
So you know what you can handle, and
you know what to say yes to. You know what to say no to.
You're happy to say no because you realize if I say yes and I don't want to, I remember what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I think something that's really been helpful for me is just the idea of framing like, if I'm saying no to someone else, I'm saying yes to myself.
Yeah.
And that's something that like I have to remember as a people pleaser, is that like I'm not it's like kind of like a transitive thing. Like I have to make a trade. There has to be an exchange. Not everybody is going to walk away from this as a win-win. Not every situation can be a win-win, but like in situations where it's not harmful, I have to be able to say yes to myself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm super excited to be working on music. I have a new song. That's it's right there. It's right there. I'm fucking telling you, it's gonna be super dope. Got some new music coming out by the end of the year. I don't think I'm gonna have an EP done by the end of the year, but I've
maybe some singles or something.
Yeah. I probably have like 2 singles going, and I have like a bunch of new comedy. So I try to frame things in a way where I'm not saying, look at the things I don't have. It's look at the things that I do.
There you
know?
go.
So
Yes.
There's always something you don't have, but focus on what you do.
yeah. Look at the things that you have created. So I'm just definitely I'm excited to be alive. I'm excited to be taking advantage of that opportunity, and I'm excited to be working with some really awesome people. So Katy, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Absolutely. I'm excited for you guys have a show after this.
Yeah, Sanctuary Sex Club, 8 p.m. every second Saturday. I now host and book that show.
Yeah.
So I took that over. Thanks to Todd Armstrong for handing me that. And I get to book a lot of fun people. We get to do dirty jokes and have our tits out. It's great.
Awesome. Hell yeah, dope. Well, if you guys are watching live, go ahead and try and go catch that. And other than that, this has been The Smoke Break. We're here every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. on Shady Pines and Pretty Dope Experience.
Bye, friends.